Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tuesday, June 28th edition of Touch 'em All, presented by Sports Map Elite. Going to be just me today. I'm at Dalton J. Brown on Twitter. Going to be diving through all of the games on the MLB board today, giving some notes on each of them, the obvious exception being that Twins Guardians game that's already underway. Before I dive into the games, I just want to touch on Sports Map Elite, do a little bit of promo here. $19.99 a month gets you full access to the site. We've got a team of really talented handicappers. Myself and BC have been working really hard on baseball. We've got, Chris Dell working a lot of different sports for us. He killed it on player props during NBA season. Joe Spano has been doing great. And tons of other folks who I'm not even mentioning right now. But really talented team. Definitely come check it out. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. But let's go ahead and dive into the games here. Plenty of action on the board today. Pretty full slate. I do have Minnesota in the first five in that first game, which is not looking great, but we'll see what happens. First game on the board today, we've got 9-5-1 Atlanta Braves at 9-5-2 Philadelphia Phillies. Braves are coming off a bit of an emotional weekend at home against the Dodgers. I was down there in Atlanta for that one. A lot of tears shed, a lot of emotions. Dodgers ended up barely eking out a series win there with a tense extra innings win on Sunday. So Braves flew to Philadelphia yesterday, had a day off. Now taking on Zach Wheeler and the Phillies. Kind of a tough spot here for them. Phillies small favorite. And if you look at what Zach Wheeler's done specifically against Atlanta, he's got a sub-2 ERA dating back to May 1st, 6.2 innings, 2 earned against Atlanta. In his first start this year, he had 10 Ks in that one. You look what he did last year, 33 2/3 innings against the Braves, just 6 earned runs allowed. That's a 1.60 ERA over that span. Atlanta's offense has been significantly less dominant against righties, and I wonder if there's some kind of an emotional or effort level letdown after a pretty tense series with the Dodgers. I'm sure the crowd in Philadelphia will pull it right back out of them if so. But, Braves still a team that's pretty hot, right? I mean, still 19-5 in June, even though they lost that series this weekend. But Wheeler's really had their number. On the flip side, Charlie Morton's been pitching a lot better of late. You look at his last 2 starts, 14 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. Those were against the Cubs and Giants. This is a Philly team that he has obviously seen a lot of since he's been in Atlanta. He did face them back in May. 4 innings of work, allowed 4 runs. Granted, he wasn't pitching as well then in general. And if you look at Uncle Charlie last season against Philadelphia, he was okay. I think his stats look a little bit better than they probably should. He ended the season with a 2.19 ERA against the Phillies, but that ignores 6 unearned runs that he gave up in one of his starts where he didn't get out of the first inning. So to me, I think you have to kind of include that in the numbers. And if you do, the ERA doubles to 4.38, which is not terrible, but certainly not dominating the Phillies by any means. Atlanta's got the much better bullpen here. Braves have had the stronger month in general, although Philadelphia is coming off a really strong series in San Diego. I don't want any involvement with Philly on the full game here. I think Atlanta's got the better bullpen. I wouldn't be surprised to see them flip this game late. But I do like Philly to be leading at the end of 5 innings. So give me Philadelphia, first 5 innings, minus 120 on the money line. That'll be our first play of the day today. Next game we've got here is going to be 9-5-3 Pittsburgh Pirates heading to Washington as they continue their series with the Washington Nationals. Pirates and Nats yesterday, it's a tough watch, right? I mean, I don't think that this is going to be necessarily the highest rated series of the weekend, but a pitching matchup today that I think is going to be pretty explosive. I'm playing the over at over 8.5. Jose Quintana going for the Pirates against Patrick Corbin for the Nats. Nats are actually a small favorite here, which is pretty rare in a Corbin start. They're looking at minus 118 on the money line. The total's actually somehow dropped from 9.5 to 8.5 overnight. I don't really get it. Patrick Corbin did pitch pretty well at Pittsburgh in April, 5 1/3, 2 earned in that game. It was one of his only good starts of the season, but you look at what he's done recently. This is a guy who's allowed 7 or more hits in 7 consecutive starts. He's allowed 2 homers in each of his last 3 starts. He's sitting there with an ERA of 5.6 or so in June, and that's despite 7 runs he's allowed not being counted as earned. So if you look at his actual effectiveness and his actual ability to keep Washington in games, it's been terrible. That being said, this isn't necessarily a Philly team that hits lefties well, so I can understand him maybe being a favorite, especially when you look at a lot of the negative regression that we've talked about being due for Jose Quintana all year. This is also a Washington team that's been hitting lefties really well. They've got a 116 WRC plus in May in that split, obviously well above average. And, we did talk a lot about Jose Quintana's regression his last few starts, and it's come to fruition. We were right. He's at 5.63 ERA in June. He's allowed 2 or more earned runs in 7 straight. Allowing 2 runs is not necessarily a horrible thing, but if you're never allowing fewer than that, that tells me that there's not really the upside that you want. And so, I think, let's assume Washington gets at least that today. And the way they've been hitting lefties, I wouldn't be surprised to see them put up 3 or 4. And with Patrick Corbin on the other side, bullpens that rank 24th and 26th in the league in June, respectively. I get that these aren't world-beating offenses, but this is just not good pitching on either side. And so, to me, 8.5 is way too low. So give me the over 8.5. Moving down, action on both of the first 2 games. Not going to be the case on this one. 9.55 Miami Marlins at 9.56 St. Louis Cardinals. This is going to be Braxton Garrett, a lefty on the mound for Miami, taking on Dakota Hudson for St. Louis. St. Louis, decent-sized favorite here, minus 150. Miami plus 130 on the road. Over-under is 8.5 in this one. I've faded Dakota Hudson over and over all season. The regression that we've talked about with him, much like Jose Quintana, is really starting to come through. He's allowed 13 earned runs in his last 16.1 innings pitched. That's a sample of just 3 starts, 10 walks and 20 hits. So we're talking about 30 base runners in about 16 innings. Really not very good. Miami quietly is 9th in Major League Baseball against right-handed pitching in June. That's a WRC plus of 113. Although their bats did no-show entirely last night in a 9-0 loss against Adam Wainwright. That was not exactly how I saw that going, but we still got to the over there. You look at the bullpens. St. Louis's bullpen right around middle of the pack in June. Miami near the bottom at 27th. I think we have a pretty good chance of some runs here, especially for Miami against Dakota Hudson. I think their offense might snap out of it a little bit today. I am kind of curious to take a look at the line here and see if the total's gone up at all, because I think that could be a bit of an interesting look. But looking at the other side, Braxton Garrett's been okay. Just 4 starts, pretty average numbers. He has faced pretty tough competition, especially for a lefty. You're looking at San Francisco, Houston, the Mets, Colorado. St. Louis kills lefties too. They haven't been recently. They're right around averaging that split in June, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at that lineup and see why they're a team that you typically want to back against left-handed pitchers. I think there's a lot of reason to like an over here. If this number somehow drops at all, I'll be all over it. I'm still showing 8.5 though, actually juiced to the over. So for now, it's going to be a pass. If you had to play the game though, I'd play it over. Staying in the NL Central here, Cincinnati Reds 9.57 at 9.58 Chicago Cubs. This game being played at Wrigley Field today. Luis Castillo on the mound for Cincinnati, taking on Keegan Thompson for the Cubbies. You look at Luis Castillo, I think he needs a change of scenery at some point. Especially you look at his numbers, home and away. He's been a lot better when he pitches outside of Great American Ballpark. The stuff with him is electric. He really should be better than he's been. The Cubs here are a small favorite, minus 120. I think that makes some sense. Over under of 9. I think I could go either way on that total. I don't have a play here. You look at Castillo, he's a guy who consistently gets through 5 to 7 innings. His last start against the Dodgers, he looked really good through the first 4, and then it just kind of blew up on him. Problem for him is he's walking way too many hitters. He did face Chicago back on the 25th of May, 5 innings, 2 runs. It's tough with Castillo. He's not really getting knocked around, but I don't really see any reason to trust him. He just hasn't earned it. And Keegan Thompson, again, this is another guy I don't know what to make of him. I do lean Chicago just because you look at his last 2 starts, 12 innings pitched, 1 earned, 16 Ks and 3 walks. That included a start against Atlanta, who's been red hot this month. So, I think if I'm going to back anybody here, it's going to be Chicago. But overall, it just seems like he's been running out of gas. Before those 2 starts, he'd been terrible. His overall June ERA is still sitting at 6. So I don't know. I'm not in a hurry to back him. Cincinnati's offense can score a little bit. Even though they're not really a good team. Both these bullpens are absolutely terrible. They rank 28th and 30th in the league. So if you don't think Keegan Thompson's going to pitch very well, I think this is a good spot to potentially target it over. Number has moved up a little bit from 8.5 to 9. For me, it's just too much variance with these 2 starters. So, I could honestly see them both throwing gems. I could see them both getting lit up. So I'm good. I'll pass. Moving out west into my favorite team, the Dodgers. They are taking on the Rockies today at Coors Field. That's going to be 9-5-9, 9-6-0 on the betting card. Clayton Kershaw taking the bump for the Dodgers against Kyle Freeland for Colorado. A couple lefties. Total has steamed down a little bit from 11.5 to 11. Dodgers significant favorites, minus 210 or so. Rockies, you're going to see numbers around plus 190. Really weird one last night. Chad Kuhl for Colorado with a complete game shutout 2-hitter or maybe a 3-hitter against the Dodgers. Barely threw 100 pitches. I don't know. In some ways it was a scheduled loss. Dodgers coming off a long Sunday night baseball game, extra inning game in Atlanta, flying most of the way across the country to Denver, playing at elevation. It's somewhat excusable, but, it was a horrible offensive performance. They didn't look like they had any sort of scouting report that they'd done, swinging early in counts. It was just really poor. Coming into tonight, Clayton Kershaw has been really dominant this year when he's been healthy. You look what he's done just since returning from the IL, 15 innings, only just 4 earned runs. He was equally good before then, obviously famously had the no-hitter going in his first outing of the year. That being said, Colorado is well above average against lefties for the season. They hit them quite well, and right now they're about as healthy as they've been. You look at that lineup. From the right side, you're going to see Chris Bryant, C.J. Cron, Elias Diaz, Connor Joe, Brendan Rodgers. These are all guys who specialize in hitting left-handed pitching. We saw it last night. They're one of the only teams that's gotten to Tyler Anderson this year. So, I think you add that with LA's bullpen being really beat up, missing Blake Trinan, Daniel Hudson, Tommy Kahnle. The list just goes on and on. I think there's reason to believe that unless Kershaw is really good tonight, Colorado could score quite a bit. So I think there is some value in the Rockies plus 1.5 on the run line. That being said, I've been encouraged from what I've seen from the Dodgers bats outside of last night on this road trip. And Kyle Freeland was absolutely lit up by the Dodgers on opening day. Didn't get out of the 4th inning, gave up 5 earned. I have some concerns with him. He has been much better on the road than at home as well. And this is just not a Dodgers lineup that you expect to get held down 2 days in a row. I will say Kyle Freeland pitched pretty well against the Dodgers last year. He has been going pretty good in June. ERA around 3, 7 innings of work and 3 out of 4 starts. Like I said, I think there's plenty of reason to lean Colorado. I'm just not sure I'm ready to fade Clayton Kershaw with how he's looked. We really haven't seen a bad start from him yet. I think the Dodgers might be out for a little blood after last night. So I'm not playing it, but if you desperately want to have a bet on this game, I would play Colorado plus 1.5 and plus 120. Staying in the NL West, we've got 9-6-1 the San Diego Padres at 9-6-2 Arizona Diamondbacks. This is a continuation of a series from we're looking at Sean Manaea and Zach Gallen tonight. Two guys who have really good numbers on the season long. I like San Diego quite a bit here on the money line. They've actually moved downward a little bit. They were around minus 116 last night. Now you're looking at minus 107. I like it even better. You look at Manaea, 13 innings, 2 earned for him against Arizona this season. Dominated them in his last start. You look what he's done in June. There was one windy day he pitched at Wrigley that didn't go well. Outside of that, 19 innings, 4 earned runs. Arizona has been hitting lefties pretty well of late, so there's some reason for concern there. But San Diego's got a massive bullpen advantage as well. 2.85 ERA against 4.45 ERA in the month of June. Big talent difference between these two rosters just in general. And San Diego's been really strong against right-handed pitching in June themselves. WRC plus 118. That's obviously 18% above average for the month. You look at Zach Gallen. The big difference with him in June, he's struggling. He's all of a sudden struggling with his command. 11 walks and hit by pitch in his last 20.2 innings of work. He's allowed 14 runs and 18 hits over that span. You add it all together, you're looking at a whip that's up around 1.5. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not up to the standard we've come to expect from him. This is also just not a matchup that's gone well for him. Zach Gallen faced San Diego 4 times last year. His ERA was 5.17 in those. That's 15.2 innings of work. So the way I look at it, you've got a small starting pitching edge to San Diego for me, just based on how much better Manaea's looked than Gallen recently. But to me, the advantages just get bigger for San Diego everywhere else. Better lineup, better bullpen, playing better baseball in general. So this game being right around a pick'em, to me, it's a pretty easy choice to put your money on the Padres here. So give me San Diego minus 107. Next game is actually going to be 9-6-5, 9-6-6. That's Oakland A's and New York Yankees. I'm obviously skipping over that Twins Guardians game one that's already in progress. It's going to be Frankie Montas on the mound for the A's. J.P. Sears making his starting debut for the season this year for the Yankees. Really interesting pitching matchup here. I am actually on the Yankees on the run line minus 1.5. That comes in at plus 105. I think the A's could be kind of a popular big underdog here at plus 170 with Frankie Montas on the mound. And I get it. He's pretty good. But I'll tell you why I'm going the exact opposite way. Montas in June, 14 runs allowed in 7 innings pitched before that 8-inning performance his last time out. You look at his last start, I think he was extended a little bit further than they'd usually like to extend him because he had a no-hitter going. So I give him credit for the masterpieces in his last start, but to me that doesn't all of a sudden become the norm or my expectation for him. I tend to look at more like a 4 or 5 start sample to get a feel for where a guy's at right now, and he hasn't been that great. And I think the big problem for him, and we saw this last night with Paul Blackburn's start, once you start going through that Yankees lineup a second or third time, they're really tough. And if Oakland has to dip into their bullpen anytime before the 7th or 8th inning, which I think they probably will, it's just a horrendous unit. It's the worst bullpen in baseball. Yankees have the best bullpen in baseball. So regardless of what a starting pitching matchup looks like, come the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, it's a massive advantage for the Yankees. And to me, that alone is enough that the Yankees should be minus 200 or more every time they play Oakland. But especially here, Frankie Montas, 5.33 ERA on the road this season. Pitching in Yankee Stadium is not going to be easy for him. So I don't know. I don't understand Frankie Montas being this close, being a favorite on the run line here, plus 1.5 at minus 125. I don't get it. That bullpen can't stop anything. And you look at the other side, J.P. Sears pitching for the Yankees. He's pitched 7 innings total at the MLB level. And I get, you don't like backing a guy who is that fresh. He hasn't given up a run in those 7 innings for what it's worth. But what's encouraging to me, 1.83 ERA at AAA in 8 starts. If we're being super real about it, the talent level in Oakland is not that different from a lot of teams, AAA teams in their lineup. So I think we're actually getting a pretty darn good starting pitcher here. A guy who's going to be amped up to get a start at Yankee Stadium. So I think Sears might already be the better of the 2 starters here. We're absolutely getting the better lineup, and we're getting the way better bullpen for a team that has been playing with their hair on fire at home. So give me the Yankees minus 1.5, plus 105. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's going to be a 2-unit play for me. I'm all over the Yankees tonight. Moving on to Boston and Toronto. 9-6-7 Red Sox at 9-6-8 Blue Jays. This is a pretty good pitching matchup, actually low-key, between Michael Wacha and Ross Stripling. Red Sox small underdogs plus 123. Blue Jays minus 133 at home, over under 9.5. I think that total is more a function of just these offenses than really this pitching matchup. Michael Wacha, 6 strong innings against Toronto back in April, allowing 1 run. He has consistently given Boston really good starts. He's been above average, although not necessarily spectacular. I do think there's some negative regression to come for him. He's been getting a bit lucky with contact. The expected ERA on him is 4.43. That's more than 2 points higher than his actual ERA is. He's not really forcing any swing and miss. And this is a Toronto team that's number 1 in baseball against right-handed pitchers in June. They're WRC plusing plus 136, which is incredible. Also, while we're at it, Toronto's also number 1 against left-handed pitching in June. This is just a lineup that's on fire in general. We saw it last night with a whole bunch of homers for them as they blew out Boston. I think Michael Wacha could be in a bit of a danger zone here. I would not be surprised to see Toronto tee off a little bit like they did last night. On the flip side, Boston's been hitting righties pretty well too. Ross Stripling is not exactly Cy Young out there, but he has been pitching really well. 5 innings for him against Boston on April 27th, only allowed 1 earned. His June has been phenomenal. 1.16 ERA this month, following a 5.65 last month. So, I think there's a lot to like with Stripling. He's running into a tough lineup. Boston 8th against righties, like I said. I do have concerns with Toronto late in the game. Their bullpen still ranks 26th in June. They've been giving up way too many runs. We saw it actually late in last night's game when Boston put up a few runs in the 9th inning. When Toronto gave up a few runs in the 9th inning. Boston's bullpen ranked 7th over that time frame. So I think if the bullpens were equal, I'd probably be playing Toronto minus 133. I don't think that's that expensive, but they're not, and so I don't think this game's quite worth playing. I do think it could be kind of high scoring. Next game down is going to be game 2 between the Twins and Guardians. It's going to be 9-6-9, 9-7-0 from Cleveland. Minnesota sending Josh Winder to the mound, 3.68 ERA against Connor Pilkington for Cleveland. Right around a pick 'em here, a little bit like the game was earlier. I do want to talk a little bit about Cleveland. I gave out a bet this last Friday. I gave out a bet to take Cleveland to miss the playoffs up to minus 125. That's a 5-unit future play for me. Honestly, I'd play it big up to about minus 150. I think this is one of those rare opportunities where a not so great team gets really hot early enough in the season that the odds swing too far in favor of them making the playoffs. I just don't see how they do it. The wild card's not going to come out of that division. Minnesota's better than they are. Chicago's better than they are. I think Cleveland missing the playoffs should be minus 300, honestly. And you look at the last few games, we're starting to see why. They've lost 5 in a row entering the doubleheader today. Minnesota has been better than they have pretty much all season. So just a thought there, right? If you can get Cleveland to miss the playoffs at minus 150 or better, I'd hammer the hell out of it. But diving into this game, Josh Winder's never seen Cleveland. He's allowed 9 runs in 7 innings over his last 2 starts, so not super effective recently. He was pretty good before then. This is a guy who still only has 29 career MLB innings, so there's just not a ton to go off of there. Some concerns with him. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He doesn't have great spin rates on his stuff. His contact profile is a little rough. Cleveland also hits righties a lot better than they hit lefties. So I'm not really in a hurry to back Josh Winder here. I think it could be a bit of a tough one for him. Cleveland might break out a little bit. But on the flip side, Connor Pilkington has been walking a ton of guys. He really just hasn't been very good recently. He's giving up a ton of barrels as well. So I think both teams actually could get after these starting pitchers. I think total around 9 reflects that. Both bullpens been kind of middling. I think Cleveland's has definitely been better over the month of June, but last few days Cleveland has kind of hit a snag. So I'm not necessarily going to put too much stock in their bullpen either. Just a pure stay away game for me. I maybe lean Minnesota, but I don't really care to get involved here. 9-7-1 Texas Rangers, 9-7-2 Kansas City Royals. Martin Perez really screwed me over last night, although the Rangers did manage to eke out a first 5-run line win. This matchup is a couple Joe righties. You got John Gray going for Texas, Jonathan Heasley going for Kansas City. Rangers pretty solid favorites actually here, -150. Royals +135 at home, over under 9. I really thought I was going to be making a Royals bet here. It just feels like this is a little steep for them as an underdog, but the more I dove through the handicap, I just can't quite get there. Texas has already seen Heasley once through 3 1/3. This was back in his April debut. Gave up 1 run. I mean, he was fine. He's been consistently mediocre. If I can say anything positive about him, he does keep Kansas City in games. He's allowed 2 to 4 runs in basically every game. But Baseball Savant says he sucks. The stuff really isn't great. His expected ERA, 5.53, suggests that he's got some pretty significant negative regression coming. And this is a Rangers offense that put up a ton of runs yesterday. So they're hitting righties fairly well, at least compared to Kansas City. So it starts to make a little bit of sense to me that the Rangers are favored the way they are. And John Gray for Texas has really settled in and had a nice June. 19.2 innings of work, 3 earned over his last 3 starts. I think he's probably pitching a little over his head. Baseball Savant says he's just about average, but if he can avoid walks the way he has his last few starts, he'll be pretty good. So I'm not in a hurry to back John Gray as a favorite or lay a run line with him, even on the first 5. But I do think Texas is a worthy favorite here. So, sometimes your first instinct doesn't take everything into account, and this is one of those. So that's a no play for me. I do have a play here. 9-7-3 Chicago White Sox out in Anaheim, which is notably not even in LA County, to take on the Orange County Anaheim Angels of Anaheim. It's going to be Johnny Cueto on the mound for the White Sox against Cole Silseth on the mound for Anaheim. Cueto and the White Sox, a small underdog here, +115. I will be playing them on the money line against the Angels, who are -125 at home. Over under here set at 9. I don't really understand why the Angels are a favorite here. I don't get it. Cole Silseth is a guy who's thrown 16 career Major League innings. During those innings, he's allowed 9 earned runs, 4 homers, 7 walks, 17 hits. There's nothing spectacular or even good about what he's done in the big league so far. This is a guy, I get it. He has a 1.75 ERA in the minors this year. That's great. But he had an ERA of 10.13 in the minors last year. So you tell me, right? I don't know why he'd be favored here. Kid's 22 years old. I don't think he's Major League ready. We've seen the Angels do this with other starters like Reed Detmers, who recently got optioned. I don't really get it. I don't get what the Angels are doing here. I don't get why they're favored here. Johnny Cueto is kind of a machine. The guy's going to spit out 5 or 6 innings. He's going to give up 2 or 3 earned runs every time out. A couple outliers mixed in, but that's what they've gotten from him this year. That 3.19 ERA is real. I think between these two starters, I'd rather trust the wily, trustworthy vet, who's been pitching pretty well against an Angels team that hasn't really been good for well over a month now. I think these are two teams that are kind of similar, underachieving, not as great as we thought teams. So give me the better starting pitcher, who is for some reason underdog. White Sox +115. Next game, we've got 4 more. This is going to be the last American League game of the night. 9-7-5 Orioles at 9-7-6 Mariners. An absolute must-watch game tonight in Seattle. Dean Kramer on the mound for Baltimore against Robbie Ray for Seattle. Mariners, pretty strong favorites, -158. Baltimore catching +143 on the road. Over-under 7.5. Baltimore's quietly, pretty good. They're only 4 games under 500. Number 3 ranked bullpen in the month of June. Number 3 ranked against left-handed pitchers WRC Plus in the month of June. They've won 5 out of 6. They've won or split 6 consecutive series. As of now, they actually have a better record than Seattle. So that's one notion right off the bat is, I'm not sure Baltimore isn't a better team right now than Seattle. That being said, Robbie Ray, 20 innings, 2 runs in his last 3 starts. So I don't want to bet against him here as much as I do like Baltimore against lefties. He's also been dominant at home, 2.84 ERA as opposed to 5.24 on the road. So it is a good spot for Robbie Ray. It's a spot where he's comfortable. He's pitching well recently. I really wanted to back Baltimore. I just can't get to it. Looking at Dean Kramer, not a ton to go off of. He is on a nice 2-start run of 11 2/3 scoreless. But looking closer, he's allowed 12 hits over those 2 starts, so probably a little bit lucky. Seattle is 10th in baseball against righties in June, so they can swing it a little bit. So I don't know. I want to play Baltimore, but I don't want to fade Robbie Ray with how he's pitching right now. He might be finding that form from last year all of a sudden. 3 more games, all interleague here to go. We've got a pretty intriguing matchup between the Brewers and Rays, 9-7-7, 9-7-8. Milwaukee going to send Brandon Woodruff to the mound against Shane Baz for Tampa. A little bit of a weird season for Woodruff. That 4.74 ERA really sticks out. And what really keeps me off of him here and what puts me on Tampa is that road ERA. He's 8.14 away from Milwaukee. He's allowing the highest hard hit rate of his career, the highest expected slugging percentage of his career. He still has good strikeout numbers. He's forcing swing and miss. The velocity hasn't really ticked down in any significant way. He's just getting hit more. He has been fairly solid in his last 3 starts, but I can't get past this 8.14 road ERA for him. There's something to that. And the Rays are a scrappy offense. If you're not at your best, they can get after you a little bit. I'm pretty high on Shane Baz too. He got hit around his first start by Minnesota, but he's been really good since then. And what really impresses me, the Yankees and Baltimore are 2 offenses that have been really good over the last month. 10.2 innings and just a solo home run against those 2. I mean, if you're shutting down the Yankees, you're doing something right now. So I'm all over Shane Baz. I actually think he might be the better starter between him and Brandon Woodruff, like in this moment right now. You look at some of the other metrics here. Both these teams have been bottom third against righties in June, so no big advantage there. But Tampa has a bullpen advantage. They're second in baseball in MLB in June with a 2.39 bullpen ERA. Milwaukee's is solid. They're right around 11 or 12. But I think I'm getting the home team with a little bit of a better starter and a little bit of a better bullpen. I don't like what I've seen from Woodruff on the road. So, not a big bet, but I'm willing to take a shot on Tampa, right around a pick of minus 113 at home. 2 more games left. Action on both. Both are interleague games. We've got 9-7-9 Houston Astros traveling up to Citi Field to take on the 9-8-0 New York Mets. This is a pitching matchup between, Framber Valdez and Carlos Carrasco. The Astros did see Carrasco last week, and they destroyed him. 5 earned runs over 2 1/3 innings. We've seen this happen to Carrasco against good competition, at times this season. You look what he's done his last 3 starts in general, 13 earned and 13.1 innings of work. That's 6 homers during that time as well, 21 hits, 5 walks. So I think Carrasco is getting exposed of late. And this is a Houston team that can absolutely smash righties when they're on. They're 4th against right-handed pitching in June. And I thought their series split at New York was pretty impressive. They could have easily taken 3 out of 4 there. Taking a look at Framber Valdez, 6 innings, 2 to 3 earned runs in every single start in June. So he's like a metronome. You know exactly what you're going to get. Only 2 walks all month. And only 2 hits allowed to New York in his last start. That's the Yankees. 1.95 ERA on the road. So I think there are a lot of indicators here that actually point to Framber Valdez pitching really well. the Mets are only 19th against lefties in June. They have not been nearly as effective as they have been against right-handed pitching. You look at Valdez. His Savant page tells you that 2.70 ERA is legit. His expected ERA is not far from there. Pretty average swing and miss metrics, but unbelievable contact profile. Gives up nothing but soft contact, and walks have been a bugaboo for him in the past, but he just hasn't been given any out in June. So I tend to think we're going to continue to get good from Valdez here. He's been great on the road all year. I think we've got a clear better starting pitcher, a team that's playing a little better than the Mets right now in Houston. So give me the Astros first 5 innings minus 120. Final game of the day, and one of my favorites from a handicapping perspective today. It's going to be 9-8-1 Detroit Tigers at 9-8-2 San Francisco Giants. Tarek Skubal on the mound for the Rangers, 3.63 ERA against Carlos Rodon, ERA well under 3. Giants are a big favorite, minus 192. I'm showing Detroit around plus 177, low total of 7. I'm all over the Giants. I like them first 5 run line. I like them full game run line. Big pitching matchup discrepancy here that doesn't show up to the naked eye. Tarek Skubal was having a breakout season through May. He's not anymore. You look what he's done in June, 18.2 innings of work, 15 earned runs, 22 hits, 3 homers, 7 walks. That's a 5.86 ERA for the month. Let's compare that to Carlos Rodon, 21 innings of work, 1 earned, 7 hits, 6 walks, no homers. And that includes starts against LA and Atlanta. So that's a 1.20 ERA. So, you look at these two guys in June, they're heading in complete opposite directions. Carlos Rodon was probably the better starter to begin with. I think Skubal's got a nice career ahead of him, but right now he's not pitching good enough. We know what San Francisco can do against left-handed pitching. They've got a bunch of guys they can stack on the right side between Thairo Estrada, Wilmer Flores, Darren Ruff. And I think one kind of hidden factor here, there was an article written by Andrew Baggerly yesterday in The Athletic regarding the Giants. And it was an article all about how they're not putting a competitive enough product on the field. They're not trying in the front office enough. And, how the game day experience is kind of stale in San Francisco. And as much as I love reading negative things about the Giants, I do think that it could be a little bit of bulletin board material here. They have a really shitty taste in their mouth after losing 2 out of 3 at home to Cincinnati. They've had a day off to kind of lick their wounds and think about it. I think you're going to get a really focused Giants team tonight. I think Rodon's going to go out there wanting to shove against Detroit. I think this is just one of those spots where you're getting the much better team with a much better pitching starting pitcher of recent. San Francisco's bullpen is 8th against Detroit's is 18th in the month of June. So I think this is going to be I think this is going to be just domination, honestly. I like San Francisco first 5 minus half a run minus 130. I like San Francisco full game on the run line minus 1.5 at plus 105. We'll go 1 unit on each for a total of 2 units there, but I'm all over the Giants tonight. Those are the plays for today. I'll go ahead and run back through them. They will also be posted to SportsMap Elite. So if you've got a premium subscription to the site, you can just pop in there. I'll have them posted a few minutes after we finish up here, so you can go review those. If you don't have a subscription for the site, great reason to sign up for one is so you can go take a look at these every Tuesday and Thursday if you can't make the show live. But let's go through them one more time. Taking the Phillies first 5 innings minus 120 on the money line. We are taking the Pirates and Nationals over 8.5. We are taking the Padres on the money line minus 107. That's Sean Manaea. We are taking the Twins on the first 5. It's going to come in at even money. That was in game 1 though, so that game already started. I think I actually lost that bet, so you missed it. Good for you. We're taking the Yankees for 2 units minus 1.5 over Oakland. I think that the beat goes on there. We are taking the Chicago White Sox on the money line plus 115 in Anaheim. Cannot figure out why they're an underdog there, so I would like to profit from it. And then the last few here, we had a flurry of bets in the interleague games. We're taking the Rays minus 113 on the money line over the Brewers. We are taking Houston first 5 innings minus 120 on the road in New York against the Mets. And we are double dipping on the Giants first 5 innings minus half a run, full game minus a run and a half. Those come in at minus 130 and plus 105 respectively. Those are the plays. You'll be able to find them online here pretty soon as well. Give me a follow on Twitter at Dalton J. Brown. Feel free to yell at me as some picks inevitably lose. Hopefully more of them win. I'm open to any questions that you have, and just generally open to talk ball. BC, at BC_Houston, he sent in a couple best bets as well. I want to make sure that I touch on those before we get going here. He texted those over to me. He is all over the Yankees with me. A lot of the reasons that we already talked about. He talked about Montas. This guy with an ERA over 5 on the road. I think you really. I don't know. I mean, to me, this is one of the most obvious plays of the day. The fact that we're getting a plus money with the Yankees, I couldn't agree with BC more. He also points out he doesn't think there's going to be a lot of fight from Oakland tonight after the way they blew that game yesterday. They had a 5-1 lead and ended up losing 9-5. He thinks they'll be a little deflated, which it makes some sense to me as well. So that's going to be probably the play of the day for Sports Map Elite. Between BC and I are going to have a bunch of units on that one. So hopefully the Yankees handle business for us. That is all for today. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I just want to remind everybody before we go that the Angels do not play in Los Angeles and are lying to you with the name of their team. They play in a crappy stadium down in Orange County. I would not suggest going to a game there. That's about it. We'll see you Thursday. Thanks.